courts and judges are going through a difficult period over the past decades. While implementing their main mission to administer justice, they increasingly have to fight for one of the main values of the rule of law: judicial independence. Lawyers, scientists, and representatives of other professions gathered in Vilnius to discuss the challenges faced by the courts and judges. The international conference, Judges Under Stress, brought together more than 100 experts from all over Europe.
For Lithuania, that's a very important event and a very good sign that we are chosen to be the main place for that conference when we raise such an important question of principle of independence of the judiciary, and also its responsibility and also the pressure that could be put on judiciary while executing the justice. I'm very happy that Lithuanian judiciary and the National Courts Administration of Lithuania is accepting that event together with Norwegian partners, Norwegian Courts Administration and the University of Oslo.
Together with the university in Oslo, we took the initiative because we thought that in Norway we have great public confidence in courts, but we saw that a lot of things happen around in Europe. And actually a part of our strategic plan is to enhance the independence of judges. And this is not about the benefit of judges, it's about we as citizens should have an impartial judge whenever we go to court.
Threats to judicial independence and attempts to influence judges are not a new phenomenon. The cases of Hungary and Poland are among the most striking, showing the threat to the rule of law and democracy if the courts become vulnerable and directly affected.
In the case of Poland, it's a very strong example of judges being under stress, because with the change of a government in 2015, the new government started a real attack on judges and judicial independence. And they've done it threefold. Once they changed legislation, for example, retiring judges that they didn't like, or for example, passing the law that prohibits judges to implement European law, which sounds absurd. But they did it also via a media campaign, hate campaign, which was kind of incredible.
Similar attempts can be seen in other European countries, so the conference paid special attention to the issues of prevention and threat identification.
In some countries there are governments in power who want to remove judicial limits on their power, and they use different techniques to silence the courts, as we have seen in, for example, Hungary or Poland. In other countries there may be situations that are perceived as emergency situations. We have now, of course, a situation in Europe with a war going on, which can frighten people and then lead to measures that break with the rule of law, which we saw during the pandemic, for example, in many countries.
At the conference, a lot of attention was paid not only to identifying the problem, but also naming necessary measures in order to combat and resist the threats against the independence of judges, withstand the pressure. The participants of the event unanimously agreed that to ensure the principle of judicial independence, complex solutions are necessary.
But I think the main challenge in all countries is to raise the awareness and the consciousness in the general population about the importance of independent courts and the rule of law. The difficulty, of course, is that things like the rule of law and the judiciary are quite abstract, and it's difficult to engage people in it. So it's very important that one has knowledgeable journalists who are willing and able to explain the importance of these things to the population.
Media, professional media, if you're talking about professional media, they can still provide balanced information. And using such kind of media, actually, that you have chance to be part of talks, conversations, communication. If journalists are trying to be lawyers like prosecutors, it's not the best way how they're dealing. They need to observe, sometimes moderate the conversations.
So it's very important to create a kind of critical group comprising of judges, of lawyers, of citizens, civil society organizations, media players, academics that can voice their concern, that can show the way ahead.
Over the last decade, issues of independence of judges regularly reached the European courts, where a certain case law was formed, giving more and more confidence to the representatives of the judicial community defending their rights.
In the case of the rule of law crisis, there is no room for compromises and procrastination. The crisis situation in one member state affects always the situation in all states, in all member states.
Speaking about the Strasbourg Court, the European Court of Human Rights, in the last years it had a number of cases, a great number of cases, and that number is increasing. There are plenty of pending cases where judicial independence is at the very core of the dispute. One topic is a very hot topic, is the termination of judicial offices or termination of judicial mandates in the course of large-scale judicial reforms that have been performed in a number of countries. And in many of these cases, violations of various articles of the Convention were found by the Strasbourg Court, including the right to apply to court.
During the discussions, the participants repeatedly returned to the basic question: how much damage to society will be caused if the principle of court independence is violated? And they unanimously agreed that if one of the fundamental pillars of a democratic state is shaken, the entire state can fall apart.
And us as citizens, we need independent judges, because independent judges protect us, protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, and also protect us from the other branches of the government.
The state is like a table with three pillars: judiciary, legislative and executive. And if one pillar is being shaken or taken away, the whole table may have fallen. So that's also for a citizen, that it's much more about more important things about this judicial independence.